Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss a report from industry experts judging the government's feeble attempts to get our customs arrangements in place as flawed. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, this Brexit borders farce is just getting more farcical, I suppose. It began with Michael Gove saying earlier on this year that he was going to recruit 50,000 bureaucrats in order to deal with the 215 million extra forms that people were going to have to fill in to trade with Europe after Brexit. It was noted that this would mean Britain will be employing more bureaucrats to deal with Brexit than the entire EU Commission, which works for over 24 different countries. If nothing else, it certainly highlighted just how much extra bureaucracy Brexit would introduce, in stark contrast to what Brexiteers promised, because this was one of the things. Extra bureaucracy, no, that's Project Fear. Okay, it's now government policy. Then there was a select committee of Parliament a few months ago asking Michael Gove, the minister in charge of our Brexit preparations, asking him what progress had been made on the recruitment and training of these 50,000 new bureaucrats. He didn't know the answer to that. I don't know. How many have recruited so far, Mr. Gove? I don't know. So the minister in charge of the operation went to a meeting where he knew he was going to be asked questions about our preparations, and he didn't know the answer to that. And we've not had a follow-up since. Have we recruited the 50,000 now? Are we on with the task of getting them trained? I had no idea at all. Certainly there was no government information on this that I had seen. Now, the most recent government announcement, I should say, was Michael Gove confirming last month that we wouldn't be ready to manage our borders at the end of this year. But he has high hopes that it will be fine next July. So are we going to extend the transition period then until next July? No, of course not. That would be silly. Then we had the Cabinet Minister writing a letter to Gove, as well as the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, asking just what exactly is our Brexit plan, because it wasn't apparent to her at all, as well as to ensure that everything would at least be fully operational next July, in line with Gove's appraisal of the situation. And for good measure, it appears she leaked it to the press as well. Now, we haven't seen the response, of course, so I don't know what assurances, if any, Gove or Sunak gave to her. And then this week, a report in the Financial Times suggested that we're actually still some way off having this new border force ready. It contained interviews with industry experts, including the Chief Executive of the Road Haulage Association and the Executive Director of the International Freight Forwarders Association. And they said that the recruitment and training scheme were flawed, cannot possibly hope to meet demand this January. This was in response to the announcement yesterday from the government about a £50 million injection of cash to the system, intended presumably to sound impressive for supporters around the country. Oh, the government are on it. They've spent another £50 million on this Brexit white elephant. But the amount is considered piss poor by industry insiders. And I've had to say this sort of thing in the past. The government frequently announce a spending promise as a way of pretending that they're dealing with an issue. And it always sounds like a lot, because 50 million, that's a lot for an individual. They can say that about anything. They can say we're going to spend 50 million on whatever. It might need 10 billion. They can say 50 million. Everyone will go, oh, they're spending money on it. Must be fine. But if you carry out a simple quotient, the figures expose themselves. So, £50 million. Now that's new money. That's a new announcement. This is on top of the £34 million already allocated. So that's £84 million in total for 50,000 new customs officials. So that works out at £1,680 per customs official needed. Now, do you think £1,680 covers the cost of recruiting and training a customs official? To say nothing of the fact that I think these bureaucrats will want paying as well. Also, it's supposed to include IT equipment. Does that sound like the government are on top of the situation right now? Does it sound like they're providing the necessary funding? Really doesn't to me. Are these amounts so deliberately low, I then think, because they want to make an announcement of another tranche of money every few months? I've no idea. What I do know is that the announcements have not as yet been about the numbers recruited or trained. How many will be in place for the end of the transition period? That's what we want to know. The government says we need 50,000. How many will we have? Understandably, the haulage industry is not at all confident that it will be enough. They say that it takes a minimum of 6 months to train a customs official. A minimum of 6 months. It can take up to a year. We have 5 months left. In addition, we need to train them in systems that do not even exist yet. So it's not just about, surely from my point of view, training the customs officials. As they're being trained in systems that don't exist yet and certainly not working yet, don't you need to train the trainers? Don't they need to be trained on how to train? Richard Burnett of the Road Haulage Association said that the government is completely complacent on the issue. Robert Windsor of the International Freight Forwarders Association said that the government had failed to recognise the practical constraints to building capacity in the industry, particularly with the impact of COVID in mind. And this is why everyone was imploring the government to extend until at least COVID had been dealt with. So when the people in the industry that the government should be listening to say that the government simply do not understand what they're doing, I mean, of course not. If they're not listening to the experts, of course we don't expect government ministers to understand these things. They're supposed to listen to the experts to appreciate it. But also they're saying that they don't even seem to care. Now, in that situation, you can't help but imagine a scenario emerging in late 2020 where these senior members of the government may be at the moment thinking it's all going to be fine and then come to realise the realities of the path that they have chosen and become genuinely confused about how things aren't going as they imagined. I mean, after all, they put in no effort whatsoever and didn't follow any of the advice given by experts. How did it all go wrong? One person quoted in the article said it was like the Somme, blindly throwing people and resources at the problem without any strategic thinking. And even from the outside, this fits whenever you listen to either Michael Gove or Boris Johnson speak about the preparations, because they never actually tell you what's been done, only what's going to be done. They never actually say what the plan is, only how much money they're spending or how many people they're recruiting. Sorry, correction. How many people they're going to recruit. They don't even know how many people they're actually recruiting because they haven't publicly said so. The Director General of the Institute for Export and International Trade said that we have 3 generations of business leaders that have not had to complete a customs form to trade with Europe, and that there was going to be a lack of capacity to deal with this in January. And they also had a bit of an interesting statistic because, like I said earlier, how many have we actually got recruited and trained? I don't know. It seems that there have been 4,700 people go through the customs training, that have done the training. Now, given that we needed a 50,000 new customs official, we already have some, because we already trade with people for whom they're needed. That is less than a tenth of the number that the government estimate is needed. And bear in mind that it's not just any good training the customs officials. Of course they need training. But they're just going to be checking, after all, the documentation filled in by exporters. So the people who have to fill that documentation in need training as well. Now, I know what some may imagine, because I would have done the same. You'd think to yourself, okay, there's less than 500 been done now, but surely this is going to accelerate, and month by month by month, there's going to be more and more people go through the training and it'll all be fine. Don't sweat it, Phil. It's all sorted by the end of the year. Well, you see, that's the thing. Because month on month on month, these people are saying, there are fewer and fewer people even completing the training. It's actually going backwards. Whereas earlier on there were several hundred a month completing it. Now it's less than 100. Why? COVID. So we're not actually going to get that many more people through this system by the end of the year, and far, far short of what is required. And every time I read an update on what industry insiders have to say about our preparations, it never gets any better. It actually gets worse, really, because the time has ticked down by another month or so before another report comes out asking these industry experts what's going on, with no real progress made and with the same mistakes being made. So that's the situation right now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.